Hello everyone. We have today with us Teja Sai, and Teja Sai has worked extensively in the space of analytics. He worked as an environmental analyst. Okay, that in itself is a big thing now. AI in ESG is the next big thing, and everyone is talking about that. And then Teja also worked with Colgate Palmolive as a senior data analyst, and he served a lot of different divisions such as Africa, Eurasia division. I'm assuming it's Europe and Asia. And then
Yeah.
now Teja is working as a senior consultant in the space of data science in Ernst Young. So who better to understand than someone who is practically working in the field, right? Thank you so much, Teja, for providing your time.
Thank you so much, Parini. Thank you for the warm
Yeah.
introduction. I think the pleasure is all mine being part of this call. And so I started out my journey in environmental analytics, but currently, I'm into retail and CPG industry, where I mostly do, pricing optimization and trade promotion optimization, the whole marketing analytics part of it.
Wonderful. So the first question, Teja, that I have for you is, what are the interesting projects that are being handled in the industry currently? Because there is a huge hype around data science and AI. And a lot of people want to get into this field, but they are really not aware of what kind of work happens in real world in the companies that we work in. So from you, we would like to know what are a few of those projects. Over to you.
So I think before getting into how AI is impacting the retail and CPG industry, a little bit of primer is, traditionally the retail CPG industry was a brick and mortar industry, mainly driven by the intuition of, what a customer wants and how do we sell our products. But having said that, with the onset of analytics, the onset of data science and AI, now it's become more and more in the sense that now the industry as such is taking advantage of AI, because traditionally it was not a very data-rich industry compared to say banking, telecom, or IT. And now because of the pre-trained models in GenAI, it's being able to ride the wave of AI, I can say that. And this might sound old school, but I broadly see marketing in the sense of the 4 P's of marketing, right? We have the product, we have place, price, and promotion. So coming to product, in the industry, product ideation, product formulation in itself is a big division. So for instance, say for GenAI, when it throws on hallucinations, that might be bad for other industries, but for us, it's part of innovation. For instance, last year, PepsiCo's Lay's had come up with a Do Us a Flavor campaign, in which they had collected millions of customer feedback on what type of flavors they need, and that was connected to a GenAI application, which got around a lot of new flavors for Lay's. Like presently, like I'm in Europe, so I see on the shelves of Europe, several Lay's flavors of mac and cheese flavor, wasabi flavors, and such. So those were all outcome of this campaign. And even I had worked in eBay, for example, I had worked with Kellogg's closely, and Kellogg's India only, they're using AI for testing out product quality. So for example, in the Mumbai office, there is a large computer vision division, which actually uses AI to segregate between the bad quality and good quality cereals in the factory. So to get, using computer vision and image recognition. And even so product inventory optimization and forecasting, right? So Unilever is a forerunner in that. And traditionally, they've been using statistical forecasting, ARIMA models, and Profit was there for some time. But now I'm seeing the onset of this thing called Time GPT, which is, a transformer-based forecasting model. So it is your typical encoder-decoder structure, but it is trained on huge amounts of data. And again, coming back, so how retail CPG, we have less amount of data and we have to come up with insights. So we are able to leverage those sort of interventions. And coming to pricing, so that is my main domain area, and it's actually close to my heart. So in terms of price optimization, the dynamic pricing, the flash sales, they've always been there, the AI/ML algorithms. But one thing which I'm able to, I personally foresee will gain a lot of traction is the use of competitor intelligence. So when we use game theory for our pricing optimization, we need to understand how the competitors are also pricing their products. And there are a lot of companies around this particular application. There are companies like Boomerang, Nuvo Retail, and such, which run web scraping tools and which gets the price each day of our product and the competitors' products. So in that background, now with the onset of the agentic AI, so like this last week, I was toying around with the operator, OpenAI's operator agent. So that can do the web scraping quite easily, right? So I personally foresee that. So instead of huge companies scraping data for you, now a simple AI engineer can run OpenAI's operator agents and such. So I see exciting times there in terms of pricing. And coming to Place, so for Place is where there's a lot of drama happening all over social media, and even in the general public, everyone's aware of, say, Amazon has its Amazon Go. I think a lot of people are aware of that, where you can just walk into a store, you can pick the products you want, you can you can just buy them, and based on image recognition, facial recognition, and product sorting, you'll be billed, and the minute you walk out of the store, you'll get the notification of that you have to pay so and so. So that is definitely there. But another beautiful use case which I had worked upon and was seeing was using video analytics in store. So in retail, like, we build planograms. We plan out the store layout on where do we place the products to optimize sales. So now using video analytics, the companies are able to determine that which areas of the store, say a snacks aisle, or places like those where customers are spending a lot of time. So, and based on that population density in the store, they're able to dynamically price. So even on the shelf, on the price shelves, say in India, for example, we have the MRP, but in Europe and the Western world, the prices are there on the shelves. So they can be dynamically changed. So that too, I found was a very interesting case. And lastly, coming to promotion, of course, promotion again is ubiquitous. So there is a lot of hyper-personalization, customer propensity modeling. One thing I was really impressed with was, the Sephora's chatbot, which takes into the skin tone of a customer and recommends products for the customer. And even when we are targeting ads, like traditionally, we have worked on market mix modeling and statistical attribution modeling to understand which ads are driving revenue. So there too, now even inbuilt into Google and Meta Analytics, there's a lot of AI happening. And another area top of my mind is, the sentiment analysis. So again, that is well known, and companies track how customers are understanding the products. But over the years, like, I've seen CPG companies like Colgate establishing full-fledged social media teams, whose main work is to actually track the customer sentiments, scraping, through social media, how customers are feeling about the product. So on the whole, I feel all these advances. And one thing I would like to add is, at least in this industry, AI is not just a tool, right? It is a hard reality. And in the general public discourse, we hear so much about AI is the future, AI is the next big thing. But I feel if somebody wants to get into this field or upskill themselves, it is the present. So yeah, I think all these areas.
Absolutely, Teja. Wonderful insights you have provided. You have taken, I should say, one of the elementary topics of 4 Ps, and you could relate AI to each of those Ps, right? Yeah. And one thing which truly stands out, at least for me, it's very interesting, is how you made the weakness of GenAI, help you. I know about SWOT analysis, where people look at strengths and weaknesses. They look at weaknesses and they'll translate that into strengths. Opportunities and threats, they look at threats and convert them into opportunities. And GenAI's weakness, which is hallucination, you used it for your advantage, right? To come up with new flavors and all that. Amazing. That's one thing. And also the planogram thing that you were talking about. Which are the areas where people spend a lot of time, and what kind of products do we need to place there so that your sales increases, is also one amazing thing. And the product that you have spoken about in the space of cosmetics, where looking at the skin tone and suggesting what products might go well onto your skin, is also one amazing thing. Yeah, hopefully There is not a lot of bias in this particular
Correct.
product. Yeah. Amazing. Thank you so much, Teja, for these insights. The next question is, in India alone, when it comes to BTech in data science, BTech in AI, then we have BTech in computer science, IT, the traditional programs. There are 8 lakh students who are coming out every year. And we do not have 8 lakh jobs as such, right? And also, a lot of people are getting trained in tier 2, tier 3 places where they do not have sufficient exposure to real world projects or to do even internship, etc. For these kind of people, what would be your suggestion? And for someone to join ENY or Colgate, for example, what is it that it takes? What kind of questions are asked and how should they actually prepare?
So I would say, having interviewed a lot of candidates, for roles in data science for our team. So I'm part of the advanced analytics team where we have mostly focused on revenue growth management and price optimization. So we look at mainly 4 areas where a candidate should be well versed in. The first area is definitely the knowledge of data science. So that, since we're talking of AI, definitely have your fundamentals strong in, say, deep learning, natural language processing, and applications of AI, computer vision, and such. But also get your fundamentals in the sense of statistics and machine learning, linear algebra. All these also have to be in place. Because, if I can digress a bit, I've had countless conversations with clients in business telling them that, you don't need an LLM for everything, right? So say simple things like a baseline incrementality graph, which is commonly done in the retail industry. So that we are also leveraging decades of research in statistics and machine learning. And I don't need to train a GenAI LLM to do that. I can always do that. But often the core statistics in ML, they are faster and much more efficient in that sense. So when we see candidates not able to answer simple things like what is a p-value, or how do you understand regression models, and ultimately here the role of interpretability in your solution is most important because you're talking to business on a daily basis. And I feel in my personal experience, they are more well attuned to the classical statistics and they are open to the idea of AI advances in our industry. But still, you should get your statistics, machine learning, and of course, advances in AI through. And the second part is your programming skills. So Python, sometimes R, and SQL. And when I say Python, it's not just classical Python, but also PySpark, PyTorch, because you're dealing with big data here. And MLOps. And of course, in SQL, one thing I wanted to mention was, since we had talked of how the industry is not very data rich and the data quality is poor. So SQL has been king, and we have like something like the hidden debt of machine learning, where the actual AI ML is only a small part of it. So around it, there's a lot of data engineering, a lot of data wrangling. Even today, I think 60 to 70% of my time goes in data wrangling. So SQL is king in that sense. SQL is not going anywhere, in my personal opinion. And of course, if the JD requires as such, you should get your data visualization tools correct, or at least be well versed in them, like Power BI, Tableau, or Colgate uses Domo, such data vision tools. And all these are, I feel, necessary conditions, but a sufficient condition would be the business knowledge, right? So you've talked about 8 lakh freshers trying to get into the data science industry and all. And the problem of the retail CPG industry not taking in freshers or preferring someone with experience is precisely this point. Because here, ultimately, you need to have, I wouldn't say an MBA or MSc in marketing type of knowledge, but you should understand the core terms, like say, what is sales lift, what is ROI, what is ROAS, when do you use ROI, when do you use ROAS, what is a marketing funnel, what are customer awareness, consideration, loyalty metrics. So have a working idea related to this. Because I remember having a conversation with a senior director with Colgate. So he was telling me that you can build chatbots, you can get NLP, you can build all the applications in AI. But at the end of the day, we are in the business of selling toothpaste. right? So that is the core motive. And if somebody wants to target these jobs, so the necessary conditions which I told, but also this business domain knowledge. So if we are interviewing two candidates, one who's really good with Python and the tech skills, but who lacks a business knowledge, and another person who understands the role he's applying for or the business insights, the domain insights, there is a tendency to favor the second candidate. So that's my personal opinion. And these are the actually grading metrics we have, at least for the L1 and L2 levels.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Teja. The inputs that you have given are amazing. One point that you have told us, Gen AI versus AI. Gen AI is not a silver bullet. It should not be applied to all the business problems. So traditional AI is here to stay, which includes a lot of statistical techniques, and interpretability is one big thing, especially if you are going to abide by European Union, say GDPR norms, etc. Any model that you build, you should be in a position to explain. That means the latest of the neural network techniques, etc. You might not want to use it. If you can probably perform surgery using a blade, why use a hammer or a saw? And then you're saying that Python knowledge is pivotal, but then knowledge of PySpark, PyTorch, etc. would add more value. This also means economies of scope. The more you know, the better it is, because you'll also have to deal with big data, rightly said. And the third thing is SQL. You were saying that SQL is a king. And I have absolutely no second thought on that, because wherever you join, you'll have structured data. And people haven't exhausted analyzing structured data. They don't even have a proper optimized database in place. So that is here to stay. So every day you'll have to deal with data. And once this structured data analysis is complete and the company reaches sufficient maturity, then they can probably get into analyzing unstructured data, or they can do things in parallel. But SQL is here to stay. I cannot agree more to this thing. Yeah, you were saying something. Any closing remarks?
No, I think that's that. And
sure.
Nothing more from my side.
Thank you so much.
Upskill, and just to add a little more on, like you were saying, like AI is not a silver bullet. And I think the responsibility also is on us, the onus is on us being AI engineers, to not use AI as a trend, but I think use it where it's meaningful and it's actually impactful. Right? So it can't replace everything, but it can only make our lives easier. And that's more I'm realizing each passing.
Absolutely. No doubt about that. You can solve it using probably software engineering topics, or by building some mobile application or web application, or by doing some automation. Why use AI instead of solving it using simpler techniques? Absolutely. Thank you so much, Teja, for your time. It means a lot. And the way you have articulated and the kind of projects you have been working on, I have no second thought that you will grow in leaps and bounds in your career. And all the best for that. Thank you so much, Teja. Do stay in touch.
Thank you so much. As I told, the pleasure is mine, and it was really nice interacting.
Thank you so much. Bye.